Alright, so this is the strategy presentation. This is for the video. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Seth. I am the lead strategist mentor, Seth. So this presentation is just on the strategy we use throughout year to year and things like that. Okay, so pre-event. There's a lot of things that go into pre-event prior to us arriving, but just some of the things I listed out that are the big ones is I will inspect who's going to the event prior to us getting there. That's a big thing because if you have no idea who is going to that event and then you show up, you're just going in blind. It's not good to do that. If it's a later event, watch how the other robots performed at earlier events. Usually we go to an early event and a later event. By time our later event occurs, we usually have some knowledge on how other teams performed at their first event. So it's very important. I will always go and watch what those robots are capable of so I can get an idea of going into the event, playing with them, what they are going to be doing. A lot of the time though, in the earlier events, you can't do that just because they haven't played yet. Another big thing is prior to getting there, we have to ensure that the scouting is set up and ready for the event. That's important. Without scouting data, the event's not going to go well. You need scouting data. It's pretty crucial for alliance. It's needed for alliance selection, especially if you want to be a top tier team. And then we double check that we have the iPad for matches. We didn't do this at Ramp Riot, so I had to use my phone, but we're doing it next year. It's very important because you always want to be able to review your footage after every match, especially with the drive team, drive coach, things like that, so that they know what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. When we get to the competition, I will be visually kind of watching as teams load in their robot. Usually I just like sitting from a distance but kind of seeing like how the robot looks. You can kind of tell if a robot's going to be okay by the look of it, even if you have no idea what it's even capable of. A lot of good teams will take good care of their robot. So if the wires look good and the mechanisms look clean, usually you can kind of take a decent guess that it's going to be a average or above robot. Prior to the practice matches, I'll actually go around the pits and kind of pre-scout the robots, ask questions, don't be afraid to. I like to kind of get an idea of, like I said, a closer look of the mechanisms and the wires, things like that, because it's, like I said, important to know what you're getting into prior to the event starting, so you can kind of get in a rough idea of what the competition's gonna go like. The biggest thing, before the first day that matches actually start, there's usually practice matches. Sometimes it's the day the event does start, depends, but watch the practice matches. This will give you a lot of information on the teams, if later events, if they changed their robot from the first event or not. An example of this was in this year that just passed, 2025, we had an intake, a ground intake on our robot, our first event, and then our second event we didn't. That's a prime example where it's watching the practice matches, you can see what teams changed on the robot and what they didn't change, and if it's the same thing, maybe differences, how they're playing, if they break down, things like that ahead of the time. Day one, very important. As strategist, I'm kind of doing what the scouters are kind of doing to an extent, rather than having a scouting iPad in my hand and clocking down the information that the robots are doing. I visually will be watching the matches. I would say 90% of my time is actually spent watching other matches visually. Very little time is spent talking to other teams. It's kind of hard to balance both, but it's very important to watch the matches because it's always good to have a mental note of what teams are capable of doing. Usually it's like I'm able to tell like just off of memory and things like that if a team going into our next match, if a team played bad their last match, good the last match, if they broke, things like that. Bouncing off of that, I'm not able to watch every match. So that's where I rely on the scouting data. That's why it's very important that we have accurate data because, like I said, I'm not able to watch every match because there's going to be matches that I'm missing because I'm talking to drive team, I'm talking to other teams prior to our match starting, alliance partners, things like that. Another thing is to keep track of when watching matches. The consistency of robot. This usually is in our scouting data, but it's very good to be paying attention for it if you are a strategist as well, because you want a consistent robot, especially when it comes to line selection. You don't want to go and pick an inconsistent robot, one that's breaking, unreliable, things like that. So, things to look for. Consistency, how reliable the robot is, the teleop capabilities, auto capabilities, the pathing, and how a team may play defense if they decide to. A big thing that a lot of people I don't think tend to actually think about is the auto pathing. That's very good for years like this or years like 2024 crescendo, where you want a team that obviously is going to benefit your auto. But a lot of teams don't actually think about that, like the pathing. So they'll go and pick a team or something for a line selection, and then they'll have autos that actually cross each other's paths, and they can't do the auto that they plan to. So that's a very good mental note to keep track of. Important, I do this so I am aware of other teams' strategies prior to eliminations. I may learn something new. What that's referring to is I'm just watching the matches. A lot of teams will use unique strategies to play against other teams, and I like to watch the matches as well so I can understand what teams are doing to beat better teams, like worse teams are doing to beat better teams, vice versa. There's sometimes a lot of upsets at competitions that you just do not expect, and it's very important to analyze that match and see how that team actually beat a better team that you did not expect. Okay, match strategy. This is kind of the going into our next match. This is kind of the process that I follow prior to our match starting. So first thing is I'll talk to the partners, like the people we have in our next match, our alliance partners. I'll talk to them about our robot capabilities. That's important so that our alliance partners understand what our robot's capable of doing. Next thing is, as an alliance, we will figure out the best auto that scores the most points for us as an alliance. I know sometimes it's easy to be like, oh yeah, we have, let's just say, a 3-piece auto and things like that, and you like to make your robot look good, but at the end of the day, you're a team, you're in it together, you want to do an auto that is going to help your team get the most points coming out of it, and that would even mean if your best auto isn't the one that you need to run in that match. You want to run the best auto for the match that is going to help your team. The next thing we talk about is the teleop roles for when auto ends. For this year example was kind of like our robot was a good algae and coral bot. This kind of was referring to like, okay, we're going to take, just an example, this section of the reef, you're going to take that section of the reef, and we're going to go in a clockwise motion around the reef. However you want to split it up, it's just important to understand, make sure everyone on your alliance understands their roles in that match. The overall strategy and teleop, defense. You also want to talk about if in that match, this varies with years, but in that match, if defense is a viable play, if it's going to be needed, or if you want to run triple O or just have a defense bot. Not all cases call for defense, not all cases call for triple offense. It kind of is something you talk about and you figure out through talking. Two different types of defense that there is zone defense, where you kind of sit in one area and you're not really targeting a specific robot, you're kind of just trying to block off that area. So an example for this year again was just sitting in front of the feeder station and slowing down robots that are just coming to that one station. That would be called zone defense. Now man defense is where that robot that is playing defense is targeting a specific robot. That has its time where it can be good, and I'll show you some examples soon. But yeah, there's two different types. I'd say those are the only two types you're kind of going to be using. Both are varying from year to year, but have their own place. The end game strategy, this was important this year, especially for teams that were running defense, because a big thing is that we noticed throughout the season, teams that were playing defense would come in and hit the chains, and they would swing around. So you want to always just talk about, as an alliance, when robots are going to be climbing, if the case is like if it's going for a ranking point, who's going to stay out and get that ranking point, and who's going to go climb. If the team is on the other side of the field, an example for this year, what side of the field are they coming in under the chains on, what chain are they coming in under, things like that. Most importantly, have a plan B. I just like to always have a plan B in mind for if something were to happen, like a mechanism breaks and we're incapable of scoring, or a game piece gets jammed, something like that. I like to make sure that the alliance knows, like, hey, if we get stuck or something like that, or someone else does, go play defense. Just make sure you know that ahead of time, because the quicker you make the decision, the better. Our goals for a match. Okay, so this is kind of a list I will run down myself. I'll run through this with the drive team and drive coach. Big things are going into the match. I like to think about, is the 6 RP possible for our lines? It used to be 4, now it's 6, but I like to think about that because it's not always smart to go for all the ranking points. Sometimes you want to just target the win because it might benefit you more. Situations like this, or if you're playing a very good team and let's just say you're not going to win that match. It is let's say you're going against an alliance that is the best at the competition. You're not going to win that alliance against that alliance. An example of this would be you're not going for the win, so you're not going for those 3 RP. You're going to target the RP that give you anything but you're going to target the RP that aren't the win. So you're going to go for the coral RP, you're going to go for the climb RP, and the auto RP. And then from there, if you want, you can obviously go for the win. That's the goal afterwards. But your target should be in a situation like that, going for those 3 RP. Another thing, like I just talked about, should we focus on the win or not? There's times where it's like, I've just been like, we're probably losing this match. We're not going for the win, focus on the RPs for this situation. Another thing is you want to show the skill level and capabilities of your robot going into the match. Once again, teams all around, especially at the World Championship, everyone's watching you. And if you break down, if you're not showing your robot's full capabilities, teams will see that and they will mark it down in their scouting data. So you always want to be doing the best you can, and you always, going into every match, want to be showing off the best and the most you can with your robot. The next thing is you always want to, it's almost contradicting, but it's hard to find that balance. You want to make your alliance look as good as you can as an alliance. So that sometimes can be not doing what you are best at, and that can refer to like something where it's like, say we were very good at coral and okay at algae, but no one else could do algae and they could do coral. A situation like this would be, we would kind of do algae so that they can do coral, and we're not limiting our points by just being able to do coral. Alliance selection, fun. Okay, this is kind of very important, especially it's something that I started doing this year. I highly suggest everyone do it. Know the strategy before picking. You kind of going into alliance selection, especially if you are top 8, you want to know the strategy you are going to be playing throughout alliance selection. That is very important because you don't want to go into alliance selection not knowing if you are going to want an algae bot or a coral bot or whatever robot you're going to want. You want to know that. So, things I look at for a first pick. Big thing, listening. As an alliance captain, you're going to be kind of giving the directions. You're going to want a team that is going to listen and not do their own thing. A big thing, knows the rules. You don't want to lose a match because penalties. That is a very, very difficult thing to, we actually just did that this season. It's very hard to swallow. It is a hard pill to swallow. You want a team that is going to know the rules. Consistency, usually. Sometimes, the reason I have usually is because ideally, you want a very consistent robot. But the reason I have usually is because sometimes that consistent robot, if you were to pick them, you're not going to make it as far if you go for a wild card robot. At Ramp Riot this year, it was kind of a situation where it was like we could go for a stretch or we could go for a consistent robot. And we went for the stretch, and we ended up making finals because of it. They ended up playing very well, and we took that risk, and we were taking on that risk to get as far as we can. So that's why I have usually. Once again, reliable. You don't want a robot that is going to break down every match, things like that. You want a reliable robot that is good at doing whatever it is you're looking for. A bot that has multiple strong factors. For a first pick, you should have this as an option. You're kind of looking for a robot that can do everything. This year, example, would be super cycling and climbing. Our first pick, I would say we would have been looking for a robot that can do algae, coral, and climb all pretty well. Anything outside of that, I would say kind of falls to a second pick, things like that. Most importantly, you want a robot that best suits your needs, your strategy needs. That's important because let's say there's a robot that's putting up 10 coral, 15 coral a match, but you are a good coral bot and you need someone that is capable of doing algae very well. You're going to want to look potentially at a robot that is doing algae very well. You want to be able to benefit each other and not be limited to to an alliance to only one set of points. For a second pick, these are the things I'm kind of looking for. I referred to it earlier, a sleeper bot. A robot that kind of teams are overlooking, maybe broke down a couple times, but you know, it's also like, okay, they fixed those issues. You're looking for that robot that teams are going to be overlooking, that kind of fell in the draft, maybe aren't ranked where they should be, things like that. Another big thing for a second pick is, I kind of like, it depends on the year, but a robot that is able to play decent teleop or decent defense and climb or something like that. They don't got to do everything right, but kind of want a robot that can do something like decent. This year, for example, I would say it was kind of like they could do teleop decently and climb, or if they couldn't do teleop, it would be kind of okay if they did defense and climb. The biggest thing this year would be climbing, I would say, for a third bot. A triple climb, you were coming out with if you were able to triple climb, you were coming out with even if you were down by 20 points, you're still coming out with the win. Once again, reliable for a second pick. This is important as well. Last thing you want to do is also lose a match, because just something happens with a robot. It all happens to everyone. But, you know, you want to be looking for those reliable robots as well. Once again, a team that listens and knows the rules. Okay, did I go back? No. Okay, so.
I have a question.
Good.
So, open for discussion. Why do you guys think a robot that didn't climb did not make it very far at World Championships? Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Climbing is worth 12 points if it's a deep climb, and having at the end of the match, if everybody deep climbs, it's 36 points, which could be a saving move. And also your alliance, the enemy team, most of the time they're also going to be able to deep climb. So if you can't match that, then you're going to be falling behind in points.
Let me rephrase the question a little bit. Why was climbing more valuable at Worlds than any other event the entire season?
Is it because?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I saw Travis's hand, but you can go.
Was it because at Worlds more coral was scored, so there wasn't as many higher up ranges to score for coral, so it was harder to score enough coral to equate a deep climb.
Yep, so that's what I was going to say. So exactly. So in early events, right, it's not that hard to make up the climbing coral. You had to score 2.5 pieces, right, in early events because the top branches were free. But then at Worlds, the entire reef was full. So that would take six coral just to match a climb.
Or no,
and
one.
there's no way you're scoring 6 that fast in the last, say, 15 seconds that you would use to climb. And so that's why it was more valuable at World Championship than any other event. And that's why you pretty much had to have, you weren't getting picked without it.
Yeah.
Well, you weren't making Einstein without it. So.
Yeah. Did you have a question, Ben, or did you put your hand up, or no? No? Okay. Yeah, to kind of bounce off of what Nate said, teams were reaching the max score that they could at Worlds without climbing. So if you had a robot that could not climb, and let's say you're reaching the max score in coral and algae, you are limiting your points by not being able to climb. Anyone that can do that and triple climb will beat you. So it's very important to be able to have that triple climb, so that even if you are going against a team that, let's say, has 2 climbs, something like that, you are still coming up by 12 points, even if you're behind. What was that? Oh yeah. So, elim strategies. Know your strategy before eliminations. After alliance selection, you form your alliance, you gather around with your alliance partners, and you talk about a strategy for your first match. You get to know ahead of time who you're going to be going up against, so plan around that. Sometimes it'll be a heavy offense, triple offense, things like that. Sometimes it might be smarter to have a defense bot to cause congestion. Just talk with your partners, figure out a strategy. Watch what other robots are doing for their strategy. I like watching, as soon as alliance selection is done and elimination matches start, I like watching what the top alliances are doing, especially because if we're good enough alliance, we're going to be playing people in that top 8. So it's important to watch how they're playing. Next thing, find the strengths and weaknesses of alliances. 2025 source pickup ground. This was an example that was kind of a mental note for me. Finding the strengths and weaknesses of alliances. An example. If a team was if you had 3 offensive robots and they all went to the source to pick it up, you could kind of send a defense bot over there and it would cause a lot of congestion. Something that helped teams run triple offense, and let's say if there was a defense bot, helped those teams run triple offense better, was having a ground intake. So it's kind of hard to find a weakness in a team that had a ground intake on their alliance, because they can score from wherever they are on the field. It doesn't matter. Watch the pathing of robots. This is important. you should always be watching this. You don't want to be, let's say for your lines, you don't want to be crossing paths. You want to be understanding of like where they're going to be, things like that. And then once again, determine if defense is worth it in that match or not. Now, can you go to, like, open up the links up there? I kind of have just some brief examples. So this is going to be an example of zone defense. So go ahead and click this one. So this was so go to the beginning and then full screen it. Yep, full screen it. Okay, so pause it real quick. Okay, so this was last year. For anyone that doesn't know, this was last year's game. A big strategy in this game was it was kind of similar to where you would pick up game pieces from a source zone, but the main difference was it was on the other side of the field. So how we were picking up coral, say the field is split this way, and we're on this alliance. If we were correlating it to this year, our source zones were in the corner, and we would be picking up from our own side. A big thing with this year was the source zone, if we're on this side, is actually all the way over here. So teams would have to travel the full field's distance to grab a game piece and then bring it back and score. So teams kind of found a loophole around that in the rules. You were able to throw, a lot of teams called it lobbing, game pieces across the field past a certain point. You couldn't throw it from behind this line, but you could throw it from anywheres in front over here. So a lot of teams, rather than going over here, grabbing a game piece and going all the way back and scoring it in there, would have a robot designated to lobbing. So that robot's goal would be to come over here, grab game pieces, drive up to this line, and just shoot it all the way over the map to the partners, who would then pick it back up off the ground and score it. That cut time in half. That's a very big rule kind of like jump, where it's like if you have a robot just sitting in this zone, the game pieces are going to be there. They don't have to leave that zone. They can just keep scoring in the amp. Now that amp was also a point multiplier. So it's important for all the top teams and alliances were always having that active. The way you got that active was putting 2 game pieces in there, and that would multiply your points, I believe, by 4. 3? It was 3? Yeah. So still, multiplying it by 3 was very nice. Now, if that wasn't active and you're scoring game pieces, you're not multiplying it by 3, I mean, you got to score 3 game pieces rather than just 1 to get 3 points. So in this match, you'll kind of see a prime example. 321, they're a team based in Philadelphia. They won the World Championship. So go ahead and play the video. You will kind of see, I'm looking for them now. 321. So 321, I believe, is, yeah. Yep, so that's 321. So this is auto. You can kind of watch in auto that they're just doing what they're told. But as soon as auto ends, they are playing against this year was one of the best robots in the season, 1323. The strategy that Cheesy Poofs in 1323 had, where 1323's goal was to just throw game pieces to Cheesy Poofs, and that was kind of their strategy. But if you see, 321 is not really playing man defense. They are just sitting in the zone waiting for the robots to come to them. What that did is that forced Cheesy Poofs to leave that corner that they couldn't just sit there, and that caused both robots to have to do full field cycles. Because the robot that was supposed to be feeding the one was actually getting shut down. So they weren't getting game pieces if they stayed in that corner and didn't leave. You can kind of see, though, they're not only targeting 1323, they're just sitting in that zone and playing zone defense. They're stopping 254 as well. So this is kind of just an example of zone defense, where they're not targeting a specific robot, they're just stopping whatever robot's coming in their path. Just trying to cause congestion and slow it down. We don't gotta watch this full match, so you can kind of pause it here and then go to the second link. Yep. Okay. So this was go to the beginning, or not the beginning, wait, this is 8 hours. Go to the beginning of this match. Go to the beginning of this match. So just a couple minutes, not yet. Okay, so you can kind of see 841 here plays defense. The goal of this year was to kind of just score everyone. It's an open field. You can go anywhere, and teams, the goal was just you would pick up your team's color ball and just throw it in the center. That was kind of the goal of this year, and obviously the people that got the most in the center and scored the most won. So a strategy, this is an example of man defense, 841 just targets their best robot and just tries to slow them down enough for 1678 and 1323 to outpower them in speed.
Who's the face?
Is that what is that, Madtown's mentor?
What?
The face down here?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's Madtown's mentor. Anyway, so go ahead, play the video. You'll kind of see an example. Where are they? We're at the, yeah. Okay. So you can, it's okay. No. Just use the keys on the keyboard, the arrow keys.
It was so far in front.
Where's the third one?
Use the arrow keys. We're still behind.
Okay,
It's okay. Can someone help Marissa use the arrow keys on the computer? It's okay. We'll wait. It's okay. I think it's soon.
They're pointing at each other.
Keep going. They're about to start. So 841 is kind of lined up behind. This is all auto currently. But as soon as this ends, you will kind of see 841 just play defense against one robot. They're not really trying to play, like we watched earlier, a zone. They are just targeting a specific robot, trying to create enough time for a 1678 and 1323 to outpower them and speed them up. Now you kind of see they flipped over there, but they get back in the match. The partners kind of bump them up. But you can see right here, 841, they're just targeting the best robot on the alliance, trying to slow them down. That is their goal. They're not sitting at a specific spot. Wherever that robot's going, they are going. They're going to be there just trying to slow it down, stop it from scoring. You can kind of see that here. They're not, the robot can't really do much. They're taking out, they are completely removing the best robot from the alliance. Alright, anyway, next video. Next one. Okay. This is an example from this year for you new students as well. This is in an 8-hour long one, so you can go to the beginning for this. Just press escape, it's bugged out. Just press escape and then click it again. There you go.
What are you saying?
There you go. Alright, go to the beginning for this real quick.
Where do you want?
The beginning.
Can you watch the government shutdown explain by bananas?
Okay.
There you go, the beginning. There you go. Alright, so, an example from this year's game. Like we talked about earlier, teams were filling up their reef at the World Championship. We kind of talked about the triple climb being important, but what we didn't talk about is the strategy that teams were doing, especially the winning alliance. You can kind of see over here, this is the winning alliance of this year's game. You have 1323, 2910, and 4272. The strategy they kind of went with was 2910 and 4272. They would remove, all of them would remove the algae, just get it out of the way at the very beginning of the match, just so that they don't have to worry about algae in their way as they're scoring coral. As soon as that ends, they kind of go to starting to fill up all the levels of the reef, but you'll kind of see early on, 1323 will actually just start doing L1. The reason they're doing that is because they have enough confidence in their alliance that they know they're going to fill up the reef. So the next way to get points is once the reef pools are filled up, you can't double stack game pieces, but what you can do is you can fit as many coral as you can in that bottom base. So you'll kind of see as soon as they're done with the algae, 1323 trust their alliance enough to fill up the reef and they'll start filling up L1. So right here you kind of see they're starting L1. Now the reason is they know the reef is going to be full. So the way you get the next amount of points in teleop is by just stacking that L1. But as you'll also see, 2910, as they're filling up the reef, they stop filling up the reef early and they actually leave their third robot, 4272, to finish off the reef, so that both 2910 and 1323 can stack L1. Because once again, they have more than enough confidence in their alliance to get the reef points, so they're just trying to stack as many as they can on L1 to maximize those points. And they were simply the best at it, and that is why they were outscoring everyone they played against. No one else could keep up in L1. So I believe 2910, yep, so you can kind of see over there, 2910 as well is now stacking L1, but you see there's still pools available. Their third robot is cleaning up the reef while the other two robots are just dominating L1. So that was kind of the strategy this year. This team did a similar strategy. They just couldn't keep up. Those were the two best robots at L1 in the world. No one else could keep up. All right, we're good here. So you can go back to it. Yep, okay, we did that. Example strategies. So an example strategy. Things that I like to think about and that teams have done. Just an example. 1678 and 2022, that game where you have the goal in the center that you saw earlier with the man defense, they referred to the field in a clock orientation so that they could kind of accurately describe where game pieces were to pick up for their drive team. And then another example is Worlds this year. We could climb and clear algae very well. That's kind of what we did. We were also decent at coral, but the thing that separated us on our alliance was our alliance partners were very good at coral. We were good at it, but we could do algae very well, and that's what they wanted for that situation. So being able to climb and do algae, that's what our alliance partners wanted. We ended up getting picked pretty high, and we fit the alliance right there. So if you go to the next slide, you'll kind of see what I'm referring to about the clock orientation. So right here, this is the field where you had that one goal in the center. This is how 1678 kind of described that they went for it. Say they are behind this driver station, they would refer to the game pieces in, let's say, 12 o'clock, 1, 3, 6, things like that, just so that they could accurately describe, hey, there's a game piece at 7 o'clock, go get it. Hey, there's a game piece at 2 o'clock, go get it. Things like that. The 2025 champion strategy kind of talked about it. The Alliance was capable of doing everything. No points were left out. They triple climbed. They filled up L1 as much as they could. They filled up the reef. They filled up algae. There was no points being left out. Now, if they only had 2 robots that could climb, then that's 12 points you are leaving out on the board. But they were an Alliance that left nothing out. They were filling out every position. Kind of what I showed you guys in the video, Madtown, 1323, and Jack in the Bot, they would kind of fill up the reef as help with the reef until it was almost full, and then they would leave it for their third robot to clean up while they stacked L1. And then obviously they would triple climb. The 2024 champions, 1690, they drafted 4522, 321. This was an example that we watched. 1690, in that game, you kind of saw that they were lobbing game pieces. What 1690 decided to do actually was they had 2 robots doing full field cycles, and instead of having a robot just throwing game pieces, they knew going into that hey, we'll just have 2 full field cycle robots so that if they have a defense spot sitting in a zone for them, they have to pick one of us. And if they pick us, they were quick enough to get around them, and if they picked a partner, 1690, the best robot, was available. To just keep scoring. So they had 2 robots that were going full field cycles, and then they sent 321 to do it defense. That's kind of where I watched 321 defense, best defense you'll kind of ever see. They shut down one of the best teams in the world, completely shut them down. And that's where 321 played zone defense. The reason we're so strong is 1323 was kind of a heavy robot. Their acceleration was a little slow. So 321 just caused congestion, which made the poofs leave the corner, and they caused congestion, but once 1323 kind of started speeding up, they couldn't get fast enough. They weren't as fast as 321, so 321 could go wherever they were trying to go faster than they could. And then, like I said, they forced 254 to leave that corner, which in the middle of a match, it messed up the whole strategy. They weren't expecting it, caught them off guard. Yup, so that's where I have this. 254 and their alliance, during the match, they had to switch up their strategy. They couldn't go with what they planned going into it. You can so now click this link. This is a example of it. You'll see the defense, you'll see 1690 as well doing the full field cycles. Go to the beginning. Sorry. Just press escape again. So this match we are going to watch. Yeah, go to the beginning. And then this is a match we will watch because this is the final match of the championship, and you get to see everything here. So down here, you kind of see auto. Once again, there were game pieces in the middle. The fastest robot to the middle in auto got those game pieces, and they came out, whoever was the fastest came out with more points, kind of, is how it worked. So auto ends, you will see 321 instantly go play zone defense. So right here, they're kind of just sitting there instantly right off the start, stopping 1323 from scoring game pieces. 254, once again, they already did this strategy. So 254 at this point was like, okay, we're going to just try to do full field cycles now, but it doesn't matter because they're shutting down the main one of the main robots right there. And if you take out one of them, you have 2 very dominant robots trying to outscoring 1 dominant robot rather than just 2 versus 2. So they're just sitting in the zone. You can kind of see, even if there's a robot not there, they're just sticking that spot. Now the big thing to pay attention to is you can kind of see 1690 and their partner just doing full field cycles. Not one of them is trying to lob game pieces. They're just doing full field cycles just because the defense bot can't stop both of them. They have to pick one of them. And it's kind of like you can see 1690 is just so fast that they can get around the defense pretty well. So you'll kind of see they're not trying to lob to each other, they're just doing full field cycles, while 321 is playing defense. And that's kind of how the match just goes out, and then they all climb at the end, and you know the blue lines end up winning. Crazy upset, very just 321 played amazing defense, and it was a good strategy all around. We're good here. You can go back. Is it not here? Okay. Wait, we're not. Oh yeah, we're there. All right. Any questions? Any questions? Yes, Gabe.
What was that picture taken?
20. Yeah, Ramfry. What? 2024? 2024, 2020. I think it was 2024. Any actual questions? No? All right. Simple enough. There you go.